What's going on there, Dustin?
No, not much, buddy. You
Good
can't do me like that.
afternoon.
You can't disappear on me like that and then expect me to be ready.
Yeah, how you doing tonight? We're live and getting the show started. Appreciate everybody jumping on. As always, Dustin, what am I going to ask everybody to do? Go ahead and break
Like,
the news to them.
subscribe, and hashtag 10K Crappie Connection.
Yeah. We're
Am I
about
close?
you got so guys, make sure as you jump on tonight, we need the 10K crappie connection. Can't explain how important it is. So I see some of my good buds coming on and Travis, Shannon.
Travis
Appreciate
Goodwin?
both of you fellas. What'd you say about Travis?
I said, was it Travis Goodwin?
There's Mr. Henderson. I know he was on the
Charles?
res today, out on the hot res with us.
Was it hot out there today?
Man, I think it's about 99 million degrees. There's Matt, Buster, Andrew. Appreciate everybody coming on. We'll have a good show planned up tonight. Mr. Churchill. What'll make a jigs? Mr. Scott England.
Ooh, that heat will drain you too, won't it?
It was the very interesting day on the lake, and I anticipate this pattern keep it on tonight. Got some really good things going tonight. Later on, I'm going to have Daniel White, Crappie Forever. I just seen him comment, so I'll go ahead and bust him out on the table. But we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we learned last week at the Lake Washington meeting we had with the Department of Wildlife, and some very cool, exciting stuff from those guys, and can't wait to share everything that I got from it, in my opinion and Daniel's opinion, and kind of where we're looking at things. Appreciate everybody jumping in. Marty, Mike, Mr. Chad Wright, Steve. Appreciate everybody coming on. As always, I think we're about 72 people at the moment, so we'll get a few more people in here, and we'll get today's bite rocking. I got some cool stuff, I think. I know Dustin has busted some fish this week. I've seen his post in there.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I did.
We're going to see if we can work it out of him.
You'll work. Oh, I can work a little bit of it out.
It's hot. The rest of the week's going to be extremely hot out here. I noticed today, even on the lake, and I'll go back about today's my fishing report. But
I was going to say, you're first this week. Good try.
Well, it sounds like that.
Yeah.
I seen the thermocline starting to set up about lunchtime today, and guys, it's very easy to see when a thermocline's setting up in the lake, and it's as simple as you start seeing dead floating catfish start popping up across the lake, and that's telling me that the thermocline's setting up at that moment. Those fish aren't reacting fast enough, and it's killing them. But I had a new buddy of mine, I guess, jump in the boat today. Evan Berry, he comes on and watches the show every week, and he jumped in the boat and went to do a little live scope training, casting, guide trip, whatever you want to call it, today out on the reservoir. We had a pretty decent day. We end up with 24 keepers. Fish, or you got to work them. And I tell people this all the time. These fish make you do everything correctly. If you're just sliding it by there and, reeling at one certain speed, not changing up things, they will completely ignore it. They want the speed of the jigs right. They want the colors right. And they want the action right. And I know we harp about it all the time as far as that kind of thing goes. But, summertime fishing to me, especially when you come into this July, August, September, are really good months to become better fishermen. And just like I was saying a second ago, these fish on the lake make you do everything right, at least on Ross Barnett. They don't have a lot of forgiveness. They don't put it up with it. They'll just ignore it and sit down there and let you cast to them 6,000 times or watch jigs for 6 hours. They really don't care. They make you entice them. They make you work for every fish you catch every single day. And I think through the years, that's actually helped me become a better fisherman, and it definitely helped you guys as well. My bait of choice today is going to be the Bobby Garland Itty Bit Swimmer. in the glacier color. And I had a pack somewhere and right here because I brought it inside. And everybody knows that every week I say orange is the key. Orange has just been phenomenal, and it has been. But today, this little glacier, and it's just a white color jig, and perfect size for these fish.
Matching the hatch.
Matching the hatch. Literally today, and I even told Evan this as we were fishing, is honestly, it's harder to look on the live scope and not see shad everywhere. It's just about impossible to fan across your live scope and not find shad. And if you can find an area that the shad are suspended and the fish are still down in that, I'm going to say 11 to 15 foot deep, you're more likely to get bit. And I think a lot of it is, one, you can see what your jigs are doing better. Or at least I can. I can see what those jigs and how the fish are reacting and if I need to speed it up and do different things. But, there's so much bait in this lake, and we're competing against live bait to catch fish. And I kind of think it, in my mind, it's kind of like when you leave a buffet and somebody's offering you a cookie. It has to be a really delicious cookie at that point for somebody to eat it, or at least it would for me, because I'm coming out of a buffet and I'm full and I'm miserable and I've got to do something. It would have to be something spectacular for me to go ahead and bite it at this point. These fish are really, they see so much bait fish day in and day out that it has to show them something that they don't see. And I get people in the boat and they say, well, how would we do with live bait? And I sit here and tell them, I was like, all right, how much live bait do we see in the lake right now? Literally, there's thousands of bait around us. So they see plenty of live bait. So I'm trying to give them something a little bit different with the action, but I'm really keying in on the lake ledges and structure. I didn't see a lot of suspended fish today. Looked at a little bit of timber, seen some fish in some timber, but really the best spot for me is wherever I can find a concentration of fish and cast to them. And my jig setup today was 2 1/16 ounce jig heads. And like I said, trying to stay back 25 to 30 feet from them at the very least, and try not to spook them. Whenever you're casting, you want to just kind of let those jig kind of fly in there and lay in there instead of smacking it down like a train. But concentrating on river ledges, any kind of old lake bed ledges, and structure in that really 10 foot to about 16, 17 foot of water is key. And like I said, I hadn't seen the thermocline. It's been coming in and out of the lake. And today, as anybody in central Mississippi knows, it was scalding hot. The thermocline started to set up about lunchtime, and we started seeing some dead catfish. And that's when I even told Evan, I said, this is how you know for certain that a thermocline's setting up. We're starting to see dead fish pop up.
Ain't that crazy?
Yep. This week, I think Friday, we're going to go up and spend the weekend at Lake Washington and actually go fishing. Probably, I'm thinking Lake Ferguson. So if any of my Delta buddies that are watching tonight, if you got any good fishing reports from Chico or Ferguson or Whittington or even Lake Lee, give them to me, and we might see you out on Lake Saturday, because we're going to come up there and try to catch some of these Mississippi oxbow lake fish this weekend. That's my today's fishing report. And guys, I know we'll be watching for y'all's report, and make sure you
no doubt. We got to get reports from y'all. See Brian. Let's see. Yeah, Brandon Thomas, Daryl Moore. See, you guys are coming in here. Brandon Thomas, I know you probably went and caught him today. We need a fishing report. He's kind of close to around here. But my today's bite is I'll start with Grand and say that it's kind of the same story as you. This summer has been tougher than most summers I've seen, and I haven't quite wrapped my head around why or what the fish are so different for. Because if I would ever gamble on being able to catch you a pile of fish, this is the time of year I would do it. Right now, from now until September, I could dang near guarantee a boatload every single day, the same spot, the same places, holding them. And that's just not the case. We can still get limits. They're just way harder to come by, and we've got to cover a lot of water. We've got to go through several different brush piles, and usually I remember mornings last year that I'd catch limits of fish by 9:30 in the morning. We start at 7:30.
Oh.
So super quick mornings, just smashing them. Now we're going till lunchtime, and I'm about to die from a heat exhaustion. But no, and it's kind of like you said. They're super picky fish, and a lot of them are on bottom, and they're just kind of spread out. I kind of found something though this last trip. It was a little easier limits than we've had in a while, and the only puzzle I can put together is we haven't had enough rain here this year. Like usually we always get a really good spring flood, and the lake comes way up 6-7 foot high. The other lakes, surrounding lakes, come way up. We have a big spring flood. We didn't have that this year. So the water stayed really clear, a lot clearer than it ever does. And that thermocline you were talking about sets up a lot shallower when the water's muddier. So our thermocline is a lot deeper now that the water is a lot clearer. And I started looking at deeper brush piles than I normally ever did this time of year, and they're starting to hold big fish and a good number of them. So hopefully this week my theory holds true, and we'll whack them. Let's see, last 2 days ago we were catching them. Our best bite was 25 to 30 foot deep off of the bottom, and they were good fish. And last year this time of year it was 7 to 12 foot was our best bite. So I think they just moved deeper, and I've been looking too shallow and catching a lot of little fish. And then finally I moved deeper, and it seems like a lot of these bigger fish are pulling up and going deeper. So as long as they stay like that, we'll see what this thermocline does to them. I just got to keep moving. Some brush piles you roll up, and it is so loaded. You think you're going to whack them, you catch 2 or 3 keepers, and you got to move. You got to go to the next spot. And you were talking about shad. Grand Lake is plumb full of shad, and it's funny you said that. I had a group of 4 guys, and we were really putting a hurting on some crappie, and they wanted to watch the live scope bad, and they haven't seen the live scope, heard all about it. They were wanting me to show them where their bait was and everything. And the best brush pile we fished, you couldn't see one crappie in it. It was completely covered in shad and small fry. We call them fry. But it was so covered, we were just dropping our baits in there. I'm like, I promise there's a brush pile in there. Their baits would disappear in it and start slow reeling it up. And you'd get a hit and catch it, and you'd have to wait a minute to see that crappie come up out of it because you could not see the crappie. So I've never done that before, but it was crazy because there was a lot of crappie in there, and we caught, I don't know, 40 or 50 keepers off that pile, just dropping through the shad and catching them. So they're in there. They're just super, super tough. Like you said, it is a tough bite right now, and you have to beg them to bite. You have to force feed them is what I say. You got to force feed them.
Spoon feed them.
I don't know how many fish will nose up to that bait and then turn back down. It'll make you want to cry. And like you said, changing your presentation, we had to do that several times. So we would do a slow reel, and when there was 4 or 5 that would just stop following it, we'd do a dead sticking. We'd start dead sticking. I'm trying all kinds of things. I'd stand behind them and shake their rod, all kinds of things to get them to bite. And then even when we had a storm roll through, the fish were on fire. We were killing them. And then a huge storm rolled through. We set out the storm about an hour, went back out, and it was a totally different fishing. The fish were super finicky, and they were super hard to get to bite. But other than that, guys, we've been doing super good. Loading the boat with fish. It's just not as easy as I like it to be. But we're learning every day. I'm learning every day and enjoying it. Enjoy sharing it with you guys. And my bait of the week would definitely be when I just went up north. There's still mayfly hatch going on here. So Cajun cricket mayfly is a killer still for me. Mayfly all the way for now. Summer has that orange. Anything with orange in it, I'm loving. But the mayfly, Cajun cricket is a killer. Clear water, dirty water, don't matter. It does really good.
You know, I see Brendan Thomas. He actually made a comment right here, and only thing really good about summertime fishing, I agree with him. I wouldn't say the only thing good about it, but it definitely holds. I totally agree with Brandon here. He said these fish are very predictable where they'll be at on, far as structure goes. These fish will be on the same structure if you find them on today, all the way really, in my mind, until about mid-October here in central Mississippi, and that water really starts dropping down in temperature a good bit. Today I noticed temperature on the water was around 85-degree water temp. Yeah, and that's pretty hot water if you think about it. I mean, that's pretty warm water.
You get in it, it feels like bath water.
Yeah, I mean, And I've seen water get up to, in the low 90s before. So you can think this water is very hot, and it's going to stay hot for a while until we get some cooler nights and some cool fronts come in. These fish will be in the same place that you're finding them right now, day in and day out. The key is just making sure you have the right presentation and changing up things to actually trigger these fish. I've seen Chad Rogers, he commented on here, and Chad was at this meeting this past weekend with me as well, but he said he chased a fish for 30 minutes, the hardest pound and a quarter fish I think he said ever caught. Chad, I'm actually, I can't let you off the hook with this. I'm very glad you held on to the pole this time, though. And I know I get a good chuckle out of Chad because he knows I'll never forget that moment this spring that Chad was fishing beside me. He was pre-fishing for a tournament, and he set the hook and the pole jumped out of his hand or something like that.
That was a 3-pounder.
Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty funny, though. I was like, man, if I had a camera right now, we would have probably a really good TikTok with that. Guys, keep on coming in here with these fish reports. I know I got John Mayo, and before I forget, this week's podcast that's coming out tomorrow night is with Mr. John Mayo. If you watch today's bite, you can see John on here every week commenting. Appreciate you, John, for doing that every week. But we did a podcast with him and Les Smith, and both of these fellas put a lot of fish in the boat by power trolling. It's a great summertime technique. It's a reaction bite. And these guys are literally on the front of their boat pushing these baits. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, around 1.4 miles an hour using big 3-inch bombers, lead weights to get them down there and stay in position. It's a really cool technique that I think that if you have a lot of fish that suspend in the body of water that you're at, you definitely need to check out power trolling. One of the things that I liked about it is, whenever you get a bite, pretty much that fish is on there. He's committed, and the baits are moving so fast. They literally hook themselves, and literally you're just trying to bring that fish to the side of the boat and get somebody to net him because you're going that 1.4 and 1.5. But very cool technique that these two guys have got it mastered up there in North Mississippi, and they talk about both of them in good detail up there. But that'll come out tomorrow afternoon about 7 with Mr. John Mayo, and I'm going to read his fishing report before I run out of breath here. Schools of bait fish everywhere on Enid and Sardis. Saw several schools of bait this weekend with 2 more large crappies sitting beneath the schools. Those fish will bite if you get a bait close to them. That makes perfect sense, too. I was talking to Evan today while we're on the boat, and we were talking about shad on when we see them on sonar, and I've definitely said it more than once, but if you can find an area that you see those shad balls tightly together on your down image and your side image, something's eating on those shad. And like John was saying in his comment, he's finding crappie sitting up underneath them, and that's textbook crappie fishing to me. It's looking for those big bait balls that are tight together, and the fish suspend it over and bring your baits by them. Sounds like just great textbook crappie fishing to me.
For sure.
6 to 10. Oh, Brian, that's a good report. I will check that out. I didn't see that today. I checked some 10-foot of water. Didn't go as shallow as 6 foot. And that's very cool. Drop me a pin and I'll go check them out for you, Brian. I'm just kidding with you, bud. I appreciate the report, too. Matt Singley. All right, what's your thoughts about using jigs with rattles or blades?
I've never I've tried both blades. This time of year, I don't have very good luck with them. I very rarely will use them. I know you use them trolling or long lining, but I don't hardly ever use them. I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff. So I don't know. The rattling, though, I don't really ever try, so I can't give a good report on it. But as far as the blades, it's a rare thing for me. They've got to be fired up or certain lakes, but not where I'm at with the clear water. Sometimes I don't have very good luck with them. I know a lot of people use them in the spring, cast them to the bank when they're spawning. And if you don't have a blade on, you ain't catching them. So I know it's definitely a timely thing.
I've tried rattles a little bit, and especially when we tried rattles on on our baits or setups where in the spring times when it was really muddy, and a lot of times it was actually spider rigging, and we would put the little glass rattlers on our hooks and above our hooks to just do something different to entice bites. This time of year, I haven't tried rattles all that much. When it comes to blades, if I'm pulling, if I'm long lining jigs, I'm gonna use a bladed jig. I'm gonna say 98% of the time. That's pretty close to 100. So
yeah, I would just go ahead and round that up.
I mean, there's a few occasions that I will try a jig heads without blades, and probably the main reason that I like blades so much is I've got that depth range dialed in, really precise in my mind. I know how those blades pull really well. The difference between blades and just, let's say, round heads or any kind of head without blades is they're going to go a little bit deeper because you don't have that turbulence kind of bringing them up. So if I wanted to go extremely deep and I didn't feel like I could get to them with bladed jig heads, I would go to round heads. I've seen a few occasions that they didn't like bladed jigs, but most of the time that I'm pulling, I want these suspended fish that are actively looking for bait fish. Chad Rogers, he's saying it's going to be very interesting. Greenville at 15 will be interested on Ferguson. Is that fall? That's anybody that's the Mississippi River we're talking about. It's a lake that's connected to the Mississippi River, and it's an old oxbow that probably where I'm gonna fish Saturday right now, unless I get some really good reports. I'm thinking about Grand Lake, Lake Chico, Whittington, Ferguson, or Lake Lee's on my hit list, and possibly even Washington, possibly. And we'll talk about Lake Washington here shortly, but keep these reports coming and we'll pop them up there. Another really thing that's cool this week that I wanted to show you guys, and you might have already seen it from the Crappie Connection as far as our post and even Bobby Garland's post, but some of the new colors that's coming out, and they look really good, and I'm going to pop them on the screen with us and might have to take even my picture away and Dustin's for a second. I'm going to take Dustin away. These are the new colors coming out from Bobby Garland Baits right now on the screen. I just took you out. I can still hear the Dustin. I'm not sure if you guys can or not. But he's still yakking. I like that sandfly. There's a fried shad that I think is really cool, interesting colors. But these are some of the new colors, and we're going to try to see if we can work something out. And between Dustin and I, we'll try to get maybe some of the new colors out for a giveaway before they're available in stores. I think I can pull it off. I think I can pull that off for you guys. You might keep them yourself.
Yeah, I really like that hummingbird. That hummingbird's slick too.
Yep, I got Dustin back. But these are the new colors that we're talking about. And another really cool thing from iCast that came from Bobby Garland Baits is that the baby shad is going to be offered in, I don't know what all colors yet, but in the 50-count bags like the mayflies. So that's a really cool thing that also that they're introduced. And people have been asking for bigger packages of baby shad for years. And, hey, you guys asked for them, so they're coming. But definitely, like we'll say every week, appreciate Bobby Garland Baits for standing behind today's bite and
absolutely
getting Dustin on board every night because he's kind of hard to get on here.
Oh, whatever. No, without them guys, I ain't able to do any of this. Hopefully, they will keep me around a little longer.
Oh, Greg, he said he went long line on Saturday. Water temperature was 89. That's some hot water, and it was tough North Georgia.
That is crazy.
Huh. Read Travis's report.
I ain't got her on here.
I just popped it on the screen.
Okay, hang on. Let it load here. I got you covered, buddy. Caught some slabs last week in 95 water on Conowa Lake. 103-degree water near the discharge side. Holy smokes. You got to be kidding me. 95 degrees. That is hot. That must be a shallow, muddy lake.
Yeah, Travis, tell us a little bit about that. How'd you catch them? I'd like to hear about that. That's some hot water.
He puts a beating on them poor little crappie. So, yeah, I would like to hear what he did. Dang.
Kent Williams. Here's a fish report from Mr. Kent Williams. I think it's Oxbow Guide Services. I'm right, Kent. He guides over on the Arkansas side of the Mississippi River. Very good fisherman. He's done some podcasts with us on jig tying, and he's a ace at tying them jigs. And so definitely, if you need some hand ties, check out those. Jim Churchill, just so many guys that tie great jigs. But this is Kent's fishing report. Fished Friday and found my fish in 3 to 5 foot of water, and they were about 2 foot deep on buckbrush. Wow. Friday was cloudy until around noon. When the sun came out came the fish, and they went to the bottom. Cream coffee was a color of choice. A 1/16 ounce by Oxford. Cream coffee.
I was about to just say that. Cream coffee. I picture what it looks like.
I can too. I mean, I'm assuming some kind of brown color or whatever.
Butterscotch.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But the good fishing report, Kent. We appreciate it.
I don't know about that one.
That was a power plant lake that he was fishing. That's why I think it got so hot like that. That's crazy.
Wow. Here's another really cool report. Shocked this past weekend, found giants schooled up in 6 foot of water on 80-degree surface temps. Mino. Another thing, guys, keep these reports coming. I see some kind of little spam thing. Mr. Spammer, we ain't got time for you, bro. Get on out. We don't need you at all.
What are they saying? Hi.
Yeah, I don't know. He's about to get blocked. But anyway, Bill Anderson, Okeechobee on the Creek Channel, 12 to 15 foot of water stumps and brush pile. Horsefly mud dauber, been working on them. That's very good colors. They've been working real good here. Like I said, today, Glacier was a color for me. Another, like I said, we're going to talk about, and I got Daniel White, Crappie Forever, coming on here in a second with us, guys. And I wanted to really go in detail and kind of tell you our input from last week's meeting that was held. And I know Chad Rogers was up there and some more guys that watch the show every week. I think Bobby. But and we'll kind of tell you how that all went down and kind of the future of Lake Washington and see what all kind of transpired and that kind of thing. Let me see if I can get this in here.
Oh, we got a couple good fishing reports here. I got a good old Grand Lake. Look, I got a guy from Grand Lake giving a fishing report. You hear that?
Yeah. About time.
How about that? Thanks, Josh. He said he fished Sunday on Grand Lake using a Crappie Pro 16th ounce pink head tipped with a minnow. Took dropping into the school of fish and slow reeling it out. If you slowed your reel at all, the fish would turn around. Sometimes took 5 to 7 foot out of the brush before it got a reaction from the fish. Oh, that's another good tip for you guys brush pile fishing. Sometimes bringing that bait up out of that brush, you won't see any fish following you, makes you want to stop it. Go ahead and bring that up a few more feet because those fish, you'll see one pick up when it's further away from them, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But thanks, Josh, because that is a very good point that I don't really ever pay attention to. Just I tell them to bring it up because sometimes they won't bite it until the surface. But you can keep reeling that thing. Once you get a few feet off the brush pile, those fish will pick up and come at it sometimes. So, yeah, good tip there for brush pile fishing in the summer. You can get far away from them because Grand Lake, like I said, is a lot clearer than it normally is this time of year. So it's just been a lot different.
You know, I got a question for Brad Egger. He's asking any kind of tips on summer crappie. They have left the marina. We had a success this year shooting docks. Don't think they would want to go out on the river with a current, but they have left. For me, and today I kind of had the mindset going on this lake because we had some current come on it, and these fish will typically get out of the current pretty quickly and seek refuge out of the current. It kind of depends if you can find any kind of current breaks along that river that would create an eddy. So I would look for any kind of eddies, Brad, along that river system that'll push crappie out of that main current body. Muddy water look shallow and look high. It's kind of always been my thoughts when it comes to high water, especially in a river system. Those fish can get up really shallow in that water column and in muddy water. Maybe that's some of the tips that you're asking for. If you got some more details, hey, come on up.
Yeah, I'd say oxbows or the eddies that you're talking about, soft spots on that river. I would definitely check those. They ought to be in the summer. They ought to still be around brush. So if you know where some structure is, or where that river catches all of your flood water, sometimes that stuff will all pile up, and your fish will start pulling up on that stuff. So I'd be looking for some shallow brush, anywhere from 5 to 10 foot.
Paul's asking, what do you think about the colors of the Bobby Garland colors on bandits?
Oh, I've seen that. That is awesome.
That is very cool.
Are they sold out yet?
I don't know. We can find that out too.
I would imagine they would be.
I'd like to see a horsefly in a bandit. Man, that would just be phenomenal color.
That would be cool. Oh, that was cool how they mimicked all them. I like that.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to catch up with everybody. Make sure I don't get any questions before we go on to this.
I sent that to a good buddy of mine that I know, Crankbaits. I know he bought him a good handful of them.
Oh,
they only made a certain number, so I remember him saying that.
James asked, what time of year do you change from power trolling and long lining to pushing minnows? James, for me, I like pulling jigs all the way until that water hits about 40 degrees surface temperature, and that's really cold. After that, I would push minnows if I was going to, troll but it would have to be below 40 degrees or falling water temperature. Now, if I get out there and it's, I'm going to say 57, and 3 days ago it was 68, then I would probably push minnows at that point. Any kind of big water temperature change. Push minnows at that point, and water temperature when it's steadily below 40 degrees. Hey, that's some very cool news right there. Won a tournament with my 9-year-old son. His first tournament past Saturday. Keeping it real. Keeping it real.
That is
Where
awesome.
was that at? What tournament, man? Let's hear some of that good stuff, man. That's awesome.
But congratulations. Awesome job. Looks like a youngin' holding some big slabs on the profile picture.
That's awesome. Mr. Bob Grantham, he said, love Lace. Yeah, I know a lot of people have been fishing Wolf Lake. I've been hearing about Wolf Lake. I know Magnolia Crappie Club's got a tournament coming up there. And undoubtedly they're pounding it pretty good. What's the actual fishery report on Wolf Lake? I've heard one. I want to see if anybody else will let any cats out of the bag, and I can compare some of the notes that I heard and see if they stand true. Because every time before a tournament, everybody knows that you'll get conflicting reports, and
how far is Wolf from you?
It's about 45 minutes. I'm not scared to go to Wolf.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little oxbow. It's about, I think, 28 miles long and full of the biggest alligator gar you can ever imagine.
Ooh-wee. Evan Berry asked where I've been fishing this week. Evan, I've been fishing Grand mainly, but I just fished yesterday, one day this week at a special lake that I run for just trophy fishing trips. It's not very big, so it can't take a whole lot of pressure, so I don't want to publicly say the name of it, but it's just a little lake out up north. So
I told you I was going to say that, Evan.
Mainly Grand Lake, though. I'd fish Grand Lake more than anything. I rarely go to that lake. It's just a special occasion for some special trips, but it is an amazing lake. It just, like I said, I don't think it can hold crazy pressure. So I like to keep it to where when I want to go, I can go there, have a good time. Nothing good lasts forever, though, so I'm sure.
Yep. Kobe's asking a question. Do you guys feel longlining would work better than pulling crankbaits on pressured river crappie? Absolutely, I do. I definitely agree with that. I think a pressured lake, I've seen it at Sardis. I went up there and got it, I don't know, 5-6 years ago for about 2 or 3 weeks, and everybody was pulling crankbaits, and they were catching fish, but it seemed like for me I could catch more fish on longline than compared to cranks just because of the pressured. So, yeah, I definitely think longline would be better than pulling crankbaits as far as pressured fishing. Here we go about the
John Mayo said the gar or on fire at Wolf Lake takes 10 pounds of minnows and plenty of extra poles rigged up.
I have buddies up there at Wolf Lake, and I went actually with them one day last July or August. But the biggest alligator gar they caught last year was 7'4" and weighed 152 pounds.
Gosh, how is there even a crappie alive in that thing?
Well, they stay away from those big gar for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Me and my 9-year-old won a crappie tournament this Saturday on Willingham Lake in Pennsylvania in 7 foot of water using the weedless slip bobbers. Baby Garland, baby shad was a big part of it. Congratulations, fellas. That's awesome. Keep up the good work. Send me some pictures, man. Message me on Facebook, and I'd like to see that, man. That's awesome. Congratulations to both of you guys.
There's some lakes too that I fish, the small lakes and stuff, that they'll have a gar spawn going on right now. But there are certain areas that usually are good crappie fishing that the screen is plumb full of gar, and that will get so frustrating sometimes.
All right, we're waiting on Chad Rogers to give us this Wolf Lake crappie report because I know he's been beating the snot out of it, and we'd like to hear some good reports from Wolf Lake. I know it's got some from Bob Grantham. There's some other guys that went to Wolf Lake, I hear. Joe Ashley can catch the gar on Wolf Lake. That's who I actually went with last year. Chad was Joe Ashley.
What do they use for bait out there for those big ones? A little bit of everything.
Now, you have to get a permit to do this, so don't just go out there and get you some of this stuff and get it done, but you got to get a permit to actually fish this way. But they take, and they're about the size of I'm going to say of a volleyball. Those
what?
These buoy markers. They're about the size of a volleyball and have steel cables with probably a 10-aught hook, circle hook, and they take a piece of shad that's roughly about 1.5 pounds, hook it.
Oh, my gosh.
Throw them out in the afternoons, let them float overnight, and I think they only can run a certain amount. And they have strict regulations when it comes to this gar fishing, this alligator gar fishing.
Really? You can't just fish for them?
No. To me, even be in the boat to grab one of their buoys, the person that had the permit to do it has to give me he had to give me written permission to run his buoys when we were still in together. So they have some strict regulations when it comes to these alligator gar, but man, it's the craziest thing I've ever.
That is crazy. So they take that buoy under, no problem?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's like trying to chase down a rabbit in your front yard, and you're just going in circles, and it's kind of like jug fishing, but on steroids.
Yeah, I guarantee it. That's great.
It's pretty cool. And about this time, I guess I'm going to add in Daniel White here, Crappie Forever, and Daniel and I, and Michael Sylvester, and Chad Rogers, and like I said, Bobby Mann, and several other people were at Lake Washington's meeting Thursday night. And we'll kind of go through some of the stuff that we talked about. And here comes Daniel. What's up?
What's going on, stranger?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. Glad to have you on. And, like I was saying a second ago, we rode up together last Thursday. And, man, I'll go ahead and let you start off, Daniel, and kind of tell us how you felt about the meeting, and I'll tell you how I felt about the meeting. We talked about a lot already, but
yeah, I felt really good about it. A lot better than going in to the meeting. we both had some reservations riding up there about what would we hear, what have they done, what are they planning on doing, and I was very encouraged at the mindset and aggressiveness that this biologist showed, and the presentation he gave us. Couple key things. One is they did a net survey this spring, which is the first one they've done in many years. So we need to keep that in mind as we talk. And they'll do another one this fall, probably another one next spring. And they do electrofishing, shot fishing samples too, but it's hard to get crappie in those. So there, you got to take that, with a grain of salt. The net sampling, they did over 50 nights of net sampling, which is very, they're putting in a lot of time and effort into this lake. I'll give them that. And they did find the numbers were real low. They only caught 84 white crappie in 50 nights of net sampling.
Oh, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And there's a lot of details we won't have time to go into tonight, but the bottom line is the lake is hurting.
That's amazing.
He went through several reasons why that is. Some environmental, mostly environmental. A bad spawn in 2020, almost non-existent spawn in 2020 for whatever reason. They don't really think fishing pressure is a big part of it. I think it's a little more than they think, but that doesn't matter. The reasons don't matter. What's the fix? First of all.
Yeah.
And they are going to stock the lake with crappie this fall. Those fish are already born, which is a good thing. They're in a fish hatchery right now. The most critical time in their life is the first 6 or 8 months of a crappie's life. They're going to get to spend that in a controlled environment. So you can basically just say we had a good 2023 spawn once they stocked.
Yeah, excellent spawn this year.
Well, when you say that, did they have a number how many they were putting in the lake?
They did not. No.
Okay.
He just acted like whatever they had at this point, if they had, I'm going to just throw a number out there, and they never even said this number, but if they have 500,000, that's what they're going to put in the lake at this time. Whatever they can hatch this spring and raise throughout the year, they're going to put every bit of them in there.
It will be a very aggressive stocking for sure. And so that's good news. They won't change any regulations until next April. They do that once a year. They don't change regulations in the middle of the year. I don't really see them changing the regulations very much, just because they don't have a lot of data right now. And like he said, if the limit would have been 15 this spring, it wouldn't have changed anything, because not many people were catching 30 crappie a trip.
That's true.
And they're going to be conservative when they do these changes. They don't like to change a lot. And they want to see what's going on. And, whatever they do, they do. And we'd be happy to help, pressure or advise or whatever. But as me and Brad were talking on the ride home, when this lake gets back, and in 3 years, I believe it'll be better.
Yeah.
In 3 years, it'll be better. In 5, it should be really good, hopefully, if we don't have a major flood or drought or anything like that. Most fishermen are going to have to take care of this lake when it gets back.
And that's kind of what my thought, and that I won't, I know it doesn't affect everybody watching this show tonight, but how our fishing community responds to this one lake that's been hurt. And, last week when we walked in there, I really didn't know how many people would be at this meet. And I'm going to guesstimate it was well over 100 people that came to this meeting last Thursday night, weekday, 6 p.m. I know Daniel drove 2 hours plus, and I drove an hour and a half or whatever it was.
Wow.
A lot of people came from all over the state to attend this meeting. And even far as their surveys goes, it shows that the lake is mainly utilized by crappie fishermen. And that's not only Lake Washington, that's really most of our lakes in Mississippi is being really utilized by crappie fishermen day in and day out. And I think it shows, at least our Department of Wildlife, that crappie fishing is very sought after and very utilized by residents here in our state and the other states around as well. But I think also this lake's going to be a good example how we, the crappie fishing community, react to lakes once they get hurt and before they get hurt. This particular biologist that did most of the presentation, I think he nailed most of the questions before they were even asked. I think their presentations were spot on. My biggest concern, to be honest with everybody out there, was were they going to do anything? Did they even acknowledge the lake was hurt? And Daniel and I, like I said, talked about a lot of these things on our ride up. And to my satisfaction, they've got a plan in place to help this lake. And in turn, it helps us. One of the things that in my mind that comes out of here is, they're paying attention more than I even gave them credit for beforehand. And even like Daniel said, they netted for 50-something nights. What was it?
How many nights? Over 50 nights. It was a lot.
For an example, they netted up north in some of these Kansas lakes, and I talked to the biologist because they tagged crappie, and they were doing like a survey to see how many were getting caught out of the lake and all that to kind of keep it from doing things like what we're talking about here. And I think they ran the net 2 nights and tagged 1,000 crappie in one lake. So that should tell you how big a difference. Mm-hmm. I mean, they ran 50 nights and got, what did you say, 80 crappie?
Yeah.
Yeah, 84 white crappie here. Yeah.
That's mind blowing. They said the first night, like the net was so full, they could have tagged them all there. I mean, it's just unreal that you say 50 nights. That's bad.
The biologist had a shocked look on his face when he he was like, "That's low."
Oh, that's low as in extinction.
Yeah.
Not a crappie in there. I would almost. Yeah, that's amazing. That's crazy. And I guess it's a timing thing too. But I remember when these people told me when they ran the net that I was surprised they caught that many because they weren't even supposed to be, that shallow. Because the way those nets work is they kind of put them on the bank, but they just swim into them from, I guess, just cruising around. It's not like they've got them baited or anything like that. It's just one they go in and can't get out of. And this wasn't even in the spawn. They say, the crappie will go up shallow at night, just like all the other fish and feed. And they were catching net loads, like over 1,000 fish. So that's amazing. 50 nights.
Wow. One of the things that I even took from their meeting is that, and like I said, I might fish Lake Washington just to kind of see my firsthand experience on this, but they had a big increase in white bass in this lake. And they said probably the biggest white bass they've ever caught in any of their surveys came from this past winter at Lake Washington. I think it was 17.5 inches long. And I mean, he showed the picture of it. I mean, literally that fish looked like it was that big around. I mean, it was a gigantic white bass. But my question to the biologist at the end of the meeting is, what can we do as the crappie fishermen to help this lake? And his first response was, catch every white bass you can. Keep every white bass you can.
Have a white bass tournament, he said.
Yeah.
Get the community together and go catch some
and
white.
We might do that. I mean, like I said, this coming weekend, I'll be at Lake Washington, and I will go out there with a rattle trap just to see if I can hook any of them. And
they get so big in numbers as well, though. I feel like it'd be hard to put dents on them. But that's just amazing. Like I guess there's a lot of questions, but my biggest one is this: I'm just confused on how the lake even does that, how it even hurts for crappie when all these other lakes, all biologists tell us is you can't possibly catch them all. You can do whatever you want. There's no way to hurt a lake with crappie.
This is a 3,000 acre lake that has, 65, maybe 70% Brad is 6 foot and under in depth.
Yeah, definitely.
It is not a deep. There's not many places for a crappie to hide. If there is a predator out there, man or white bass or whatever.
Yeah. Is there rivers flowing into it?
No.
Okay.
No,
so
it's a natural, just a lot of, I think it's
like a big pond.
70% agriculture runoff and bottomland runoff.
That's a big difference.
major creek running into it or anything like that.
And, that hurts. Yeah.
To me, this lake got hurt more than anything else, in my opinion, from bad spawns. I personally think 2019 was a terrible spawn there. I think 2020 was a terrible spawn there. And then, like Daniel and I were talking about, well, if you get 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 bad spawns together, your population goes down so low, they can't replenish the lake itself because they're so low. And that's the point that Lake Washington is at. And I seen even Chad Rogers even made the comment about this, but this is the first time that I can ever recall, and maybe even the history in the state of Mississippi, as far as them coming in and aggressively stocking a body of water this size.
That's crazy.
They stock, a bunch of the state lakes that are 200 or 300 acres or whatever, every year. But for them to go in and say, hey, whatever they got in the hatchery, it is totally reserved for this body of water, is pretty impressive to me, and shows them that, hey, it's showing us, the crappie fishermen, that, hey, they care about this little lake and they want to do something about it. And I really think, in my mind, because I can tell you for a fact that the director of fishery knows who I am because I email him and talk to him so much about it. But the main thing that you guys watching that can help out, regardless if it's Lake Washington or a Kansas lake or a Pennsylvania lake, is find the biologist that's over these lakes and email them. They actually work for us, the taxpayer fishing license buying individuals. Let them know who you are and let them know your concerns. And like I said, they seem to listen to me at this point. I would personally, and even on their angler surveys, as far as Lake Washington goes, it showed that 56% of the anglers wants that daily limit drop from 30 to 15. I think that would be great for this lake.
And almost 20-something% wanted it dropped to 20, and only I think it was less than 10% wanted it to stay the same. So the public is out there speaking for sure.
Yeah. And at least they're tracking that and taking note of that. And I honestly, I think they will move it. And personally, I think that's the right way. And I got messages last week, even before this meeting, that people agreed and disagreed with how I felt about the lake. And it's just, my personal opinion. I'd love to see, that limit drop down. And, everybody wants to say it's from people from out of state, catching too many fish, and it's too many guides catching fish. And the best way to help any of these lakes is by, what Crappie Forever stands for is, keeping what you want and utilize and turning back the rest. And that's what we got to start going.
Yeah. I always think that 15 number, I get a hard time too. Here in Grand Lake, our number is 15 a person over 10 inches. My theory of looking at that is 15 fish is going to feed at least 3 people. Your one person is coming home with a meal for their family with 15 fish. So
that's 30 pieces of fish.
Yeah. Do what?
That's 30 pieces of fish.
Yeah, exactly. That's my thing. When you get into those numbers, like some of these Oklahoma lakes have 37 a person, that is outrageous. That's pretty dang ridiculous. So to have something close to that for a little 3,000 acre lake is pretty crazy. I could definitely see that.
And I do want to. Ryan Jones is the biologist that did this presentation, and I want to give him a big shout out because he's very knowledgeable. And he seems very motivated to turn this problem around. And he has not been in this position very long. This didn't really happen on his watch. Wow. So I got a really good feeling from him. I don't know if you did, Brad, but I did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He gave me his cell phone and told me to call him anytime. And like I said, I actually talked to him yesterday on the phone as far as texting goes. And my big thing, and I see people say about, enforcement, and I agree, it has to be enforcement. But, I'm the kind of person that, especially, if you're coming past me and you're speeding, I'm probably not going to say nothing. It's just whatever. But if I see somebody out there, with a deep freezer full of fish, and that's what you always hear about Lake Washington and keeping these shorts, this and that, they've got numbers for you to call and utilize and report things when you see, because that affects every one of us. So if you see somebody blatantly breaking the law when it comes to our natural resource, it's kind of your responsibility at that point to call and let it be known. And like I said, personally, I keep all these emails to these different guys and let them know what I see in the lakes as I go along. If I see an issue, I'm gonna call it in. Just like if you seen somebody breaking the law that affects you personally, you should call it in. And this definitely is one of those things. Chad Rogers just posted 1-800-BE-SMART, and that's exactly right. We can't arrest nobody. We can't give anybody tickets, but the only thing you can do is call it in. And when you see somebody breaking the law, but in my opinion, I believe that I'm going to say 95% of everybody fishing, and maybe it's gullible side of me, I don't know, but I believe 95% of the people, or even greater, respect the laws, respect the limits, respect the regulations. So I don't think that.
I'd say 80.
You think 80?
I'd say about 80. I know a lot of outlaws.
Maybe that's just in Oklahoma up there in Kansas.
Yeah, that's true too. You know how many people I've talked to, like on docks and stuff at Grand, that even think doesn't even know the limit, don't know there's a size, nothing like that. There's a lot more people than I'd ever imagine that have no clue that there's even anything to do with the crappie. You just keep all you want.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, if you see something like that and you think it needs to be addressed, call 1-800-BE-SMART, like Chad Rogers has posted up there.
And he did show us another chart I thought was interesting, that 95% of the 2-year-old fish are under 11 inches on this lake. And that's important because people want it's an 11-inch limit, and people want it raised to 12. And I'm not against that or for it or either one, but when a crappie gets 2 years old, they spawn. They'll spawn their first successful spawn.
Awesome.
That's what I've been told. And so all of the fish are going to at least spawn once because they're not 11 inches yet. And that's what the inch limit is for. So we can, if these fish make it, these 2023 fish make it, then in 2025, we should have another good spawn. And in 26, there should be a lot of 3-year-olds out there. So I really think this could turn around pretty quick.
If they really wanted to do it right, they'd close that sucker for 1 year and let those crappie spawn without getting hit.
I don't think that's even the thing, is because right now people are not going that lake. I mean,
they will when they hear that sucker get stuck full of them.
No, I don't think so. I don't. I really don't, because I mean, it's no fun going up and catching 6-inch fish or 3-inch fish.
Very good.
I think it'll be a while before the pressure gets back.
Yeah.
And I do think just in these short 2 to 3 years that, this lake's really been bad. And now, the next 2 to 3 years when it's coming back, the mindset of crappie fishermen are different because of shows like this. And
that's right.
And because you can catch them when you want to, and you don't have to stock, less and less people are stocking their freezer slab full of crappie.
I agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
In 3 more years, let's hope that's even less.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time, and I think the lake will pop back. He was just saying how fertile this lake is, and the growth rates are just extremely high, and the fish that they did catch were just phenomenally healthy. And I believe that totally. The population is just low, and it's going to take a little time for it to get back in state. I'm very pleased that the state's not only stocking it, but they're going to research it even more this fall and wintertime. They're going to, electroshock it, and they're going to net it again. And like I said earlier, they're considering changes to regulations next April. It won't be, a light switch thing that just makes Lake Washington come back to what it used to be. And I can tell you guys from past experience, Lake Washington was as good as crappie fishing gets. And I think it can be back there. And for me, it's all about bringing it back to what it should be and what it can be. And
it's not a race; it's a marathon.
That's right.
It is, and Mother Nature has the final say.
Exactly.
He did say, he's going to help it as much as they can. But you have bad spawns, you have floods, and you have droughts, and that's just, that's just what it is.
Yep.
Well, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Appreciate everybody joining in this week. Had a real good show. Appreciate Daniel going up with me last week and everybody else that attended that meeting. The Crappie Forever. You guys are killing it, and look at for Crappie Connection gear on crappieforever.com. I'm gonna spit it out right, Daniel. But appreciate everybody joining in this week, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
All right, we will see you guys next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock.
o'clock.
Holla, baby.